The supplies list. Everything on the supplies list is fairly straightforward. You need scissors, a ruler, a sharp knife, a cutting mat. Your weights, again, you can use bricks or anything particularly heavy if you've got a car rotor or something. Anything that can be cleaned up or wrapped. Old books, again, they work fabulous. You'll need elastics, binder clips, which are also sometimes known as butterfly clips. That's these folks right here. They're good for holding, I've used them to hold wax paper into books so that the wax paper isn't shifting while I'm repairing it. And they can hold paperbacks together. They're not so much on the hardcovers because most of them you can't get big enough to fit around a hardcover. Paint brushes or wax paper. Wax paper you use when you are gluing because the glue doesn't stick to the wax paper so long as you don't actually put the glue on the wax paper. You can glue wax paper to a page. You got to work really hard at it though, but it can be done. Putting it too far down into the gutter when you're gluing is pretty much a surefire way to glue it in there. So you want to pull the wax paper out enough so that you've still got room to glue. Paint brushes, something that not many think of is when you are erasing or sanding there will be dust left over and the glue won't stick to the dust. So you want to get all the dust off. You need grab any normal or larger size paintbrush that is softer and will pick up the dust and get it out of your way. Also good for catching eraser crumbs and getting them out of the way as well. A square is good for repairing paperback covers along with the heavier poster paper. So then you can get the corners square because most poster paper that is hanging around in the library has probably been cut about 3 or 4 times and is likely not square anymore. Sanding paper, you can use the finer sandpaper. Thank you. Finer sandpaper is good for cleaning the edges of books. You can sand along the edge if you notice that there's a stain or pen marks, or if there's a stamp that you want to take off, you can try and sand it off. Heavier sandpaper is good for removing old glue. Like if you were going to try and repair this guy, all that old glue has to come off so that the new glue has something to stick to. And you can try using a sharp knife. I can be quite clumsy, so I wouldn't personally. But sandpaper usually takes it off fairly good. It might take a little bit of elbow grease, but you can get it off and then the new glue will have something to stick to and it will stick better to the paper than with the old glue. Glue. The funny thing about glue, when you order from Brodart, you can't order it in the winter because if it freezes, that'll wreck it. So this is one of the first things I was taught actually when I started doing repairs. If you're going to order glue, order it in the summer so that it's not shipped and freezing. There's a bunch of different tapes for book repair. There's cloth tape, which is excellent for repairing hardcovers. I like this stuff with the release backing because you can measure it and shape it and cut it properly before, like without having it all sticky, because you can get it without the release backing and then it just comes off like a normal roll of tape where it's just tape on top of tape. And I find that quite irritating because I like to size everything up and make sure that it's all going to fit first. There is book tape, which is quite thick. Just take this out here. And Brodart, in all of their wisdom, is again selling book tape under 2 different names. There's a slightly lighter book tape, and there's a heavier book tape. Of course, the heavier stuff is going to have more strength. It's going to last a little bit longer, and it will probably be better for most things. The lighter tape is good for, I guess, smaller items, such as I could imagine using the lighter tape if you are taping along the front edge of a cover, as opposed to, I would definitely use the heavier tape along the spine, because the spine's going to get a good bit of wear and tear. But these are usually the two most damaged parts of the book, is the front of the cover and the spine. For example, this guy, which was a textbook from the 60s, or one of the required readings for English. I think everybody has read this for English class. And you can see the cover is quite damaged, so the thick, heavy tape would be really good along the edge. There is two-way hinge tape, which is good for reinforcing hinges. When your hinge has not completely broken down and the super is still intact, and ideally some of the paper is still intact, this tape is perfect for that. It's got, the backing comes off in two different pieces so that you can line it up one edge at a time, and it works really good. When I use the four-way hinge tape, which is this stuff, it's also known as stitched hinge tape, because it is stitched and it will basically rebuild the hinge, is what it does. Oh, I've got to cut this here. So it's two pieces of tape with the sticky side out facing together. And so you remove the backing and it rebuilds the hinge when your hinge has completely broken down. The J-Lar tape, which we've got a little bit here, this stuff is really, really light. I personally wouldn't use it for repairs per se. I would use it more for taping over barcodes and labels, because it's incredibly thin and there's really not much to it. It's definitely not the strongest of tapes. And then we have the paper repair tape, which is known as Filmoplast P or Filmoplast P90. The P90 stuff is quite opaque, whereas the Filmoplast P, once it's burnished, can be very transparent actually. So I definitely recommend Filmoplast P, but here all they have is the P90. So we'll have to make do with that. Never use your standard invisible magic tape to repair a book, because it won't last. It's not sticky enough and it will break down over time and will leave a sticky residue on the pages, and it's almost impossible to get off without damaging the book more. At MacEwan we had nursing textbooks where they had ripped out entire chapters, stapled them back together, and taped them back in. You can't repair that. There's no way. Plus they'd highlighted the entire thing. That was fabulous. Most tapes come on a 3-inch core, and so they have these wonderful little tape dispensers. I'm a huge nerd, so this is actually my personal tape dispenser. I love it. This was a treat when I bought this. And so you can fit multiple different rolls of tape on these guys. Just make sure I'm putting it on the proper way here. And the cord just slides in and clicks. And that's that. This is a really awesome tape dispenser, and what it's used for is taping the spines of books. What it does is there's a little line there, a little diagonal line, and it automatically measures where the bottom of your spine should line up so that it tapes it evenly along the spine and on both edges. And I can actually show you how that one works, because I'm going to be fixing this one right now. So you just line the spine up, line the bottom edge up with the, oh, it's supposed to be on this side. Ah. Line the bottom edge up on this side, and if your tape is centered in the middle, then it will tape it pretty much perfectly. library copy, can you tell? We'll tape it pretty much perfectly, as long as everything else is lined up straight. Run the slicer on the top. And you just pull it down. Tighten it as much as you can. Fold it over. Burnish it with your bone. This is a bone. It's wonderful. It's good for burnishing, manipulating tapes. You can use it to grab the tape so that it's not all full of fingerprints and any residue that's been on your hands. Glue doesn't seem to stick to it very well. And that's pretty much the simplest spine repair that there is. You can do it without this. All you have to do is just take off your piece of tape. I usually leave it just a couple millimeters shorter on either edge and just line it up manually by hand and then press it down and burnish it. The only other kind of tape, this is filament tape. It's got glass filaments in it, often used for packing boxes to be shipped through the mail. And what it's really good for in book repair is reattaching the covers of damaged magazines and booklets. All you have to do is run a piece of filament tape along the outside of the center. So this guy's not destroyed, but we can pretend. If you take the staples out, if your covers come off, all you have to do is take the staples out, run a piece of filament tape down the outside edge of the spine. I like to, if the inside's looking really bad, then I will run a piece of filament tape up the inside too. Line it all up and staple it with a long arm stapler. So it does require a special stapler, but it usually works and they hold up for quite a while afterwards. The only problem that I've found with that is once you take the staples out, you'll notice that the pages are at an angle because they've been cut so that they're flush when it's folded. And so lining it up again can be quite the task. So if I can, I like to use the binder clips and just clip it on one edge, and then I can tape it and re-staple it. And then it all still lines up again. It will be a little bit harder to close, it will be a little stiffer with the filament tape, but chances are it's not going to fall apart again. Okay, this guy's listed under optional supplies, along with the long reach stapler. An apron can be really good if you don't like getting glue and stuff all over your clothes, or if you're clumsy like me. And there are H-bands, which are essentially two elastics joined so that they fit over an item and distribute the pressure evenly. They work pretty good. I think this book might be too small. This book's way too small. They're handy. I don't like using them too much if it's a really heavy glue job, because I like a little bit more pressure. I'll use the weights if it's a book that's been repaired with glue. But if you've not got a weight handy, then it's better than nothing if they're the right size, because this one's way too big for this book. But if they're the right size, then they work better than nothing. An all-in binding thread is for resewing stitched signatures. That's a major repair and not one that I have ever undertaken, so I can't really advise too much because I'm not that much of an expert that I am good at that. Tape dispensers downstairs, here at UNBC, they do it mostly by hand. They have one tape dispenser like this, the rest of the tape they spool out by hand, which works if your organization or you yourself cannot afford a tape dispenser. I find them really handy because then you don't need 3 hands to properly measure a piece of tape. So I like them. This one actually comes with a weight for another $50. I figured I'd skip on that, but it's also, if you're doing a lot of repairing, the weight is definitely a good investment because then you're not trying to hold the tape dispenser and pull out your piece of tape and measure it, and you almost need 3 hands for that too. There is a cleaner in the Brodart catalog called Sterling's Magic Cleaner. It is excellent at removing grime and gunk and marker off of laminated covers. It's also very good at removing grime and gunk, but not so much the marker, off of hard covers, because the hard cover is usually more of a cloth or paper, whereas the laminated covers are plastic. And so the Magic Cleaner takes it off really good. You just wipe it on with one cloth, and wipe it off with another cloth, wax on, wax off. Works really good. Small containers are also very handy to hold glue, if you like to dole out your glue in large amounts, or water, which is what this one's full of, for gluing and repairing. And that's the supplies list. Okay. This is a really cute little book. It's called The Care and Feeding of Books Old and New. My supervisor lent it to me. And it's written by the former owners. When they wrote it, they owned a bookstore selling books about dogs. They sold new books, they sold old books, they sold rare books, they sold common books. They sold almost any book that you can imagine about dogs, so they ran across quite a few damaged books that they were buying used. And so they've got a really cute take on repair. The book is written with quite a bit of humor, and I find it was a really amusing read. The only thing that I really didn't like about it is they use the magic tape to repair their books. And that drives me a little bit crazy, because they make tape for for repairing torn and damaged pages. So why would you use magic tape that is definitely not archival quality, is definitely not pH balanced, and will definitely not stand up to 20 years of use? But to each their own. There's no one right way to repair books. So, but it was a good book other than that.